You know someone who is in domestic violence. Everybody knows someone. It's like a cancer. Violence creates so many other issues. How can we work together? How can we analyze deeply and critically what is happening, what it means to be in a domestic violence situation, not only in the family, but in the whole system?
The way I and most advocates for survivors of domestic violence define domestic violence is that it's a series of tactics used by an abuser to exert power and control over their victim or over the survivor. And there's a power and control wheel where around the wheel there's all the different ways in which that happens. Emotional abuse is one, economic abuse is another, isolation, using gender roles, so using the hierarchy of patriarchy is one form, using children, using immigration benefits or immigration status. All of these are tactics that abusers use. And I think it's important for people to know that domestic abuse takes those forms. And it's not just physical violence, it's also all of these other tactics that abusers use to control their victims.
I mean, we know that having to get uprooted from where your home is not an easy ask. When folks are thinking about shelter, oftentimes the unknowing of what to expect is really scary. And to think that if the shelter is an environment where there's multiple people, multiple strangers, especially with COVID, right? We've seen all of the different ways that folks are starting to recognize what social distancing means, what it means to then have to be responsible, not only for yourself, but for those around you. But when you think about families, oftentimes an abusive partner will use that as a tactic to create some manipulation in that. And so a lot of times abusive partners might say something to the fact of, if our children contract COVID because you're taking them to an unknown place with a lot of other people, it's on you.
Well, you can imagine that, if you're in a relationship where you are being subjected to abuse, perhaps before you could go to work and you could speak with your coworkers, you could go out and run errands. Perhaps you were home and your abuser was going out, but now people are self-isolating at home, and so they're spending a lot more time together, and there are more stresses on the people in that relationship, and so the abuse is rising because of the proximity and the stress. And then what we're seeing, fewer people accessing the walk-ins or call-ins to get community services, but more people who are trying to access the shelters. I think people are trying to tolerate as much as they can and survive as well as they can until it gets to a point where it's truly physically harmful and they're in danger, and then they're trying to leave.
We don't hear the stories very often about immigrant women working at the hotels, immigrant women working at the fields, picking your food. They have the issue, they are undocumented. If you say something about this, and then I'm gonna call the border patrol.
No es tu culpa, te creemos, no estás sola, sí hay ayuda.
So this program started in 2016, and it was like for the community women, we want to become a promotoras we want to learn and become a promotoras to help other women who are going through domestic violence. So it was more like a community leaders helping other women. We tend to educate these women about the dynamics of domestic violence and also about what resources we have available and what are your rights. There's help for you, and you have the right to go and file a restriction order against who is abusing you. So, but it's hard. And then I learned about the Immigrant Victims of Violence Task Force. So it's the only like a coalition that is specifically for immigrant women.
Immigrant women do face specific obstacles in that, they're already living in the shadows if they're undocumented. They're already afraid of law enforcement. They're already afraid of discrimination on account of their status. So at the Domestic Violence Law Clinic here at the University of Arizona, we represent survivors in their legal cases. Most of those cases are when the survivor is trying to get an order of protection against their abuser that requires the abuser to stay away from them and not contact them. And the benefit of that is that once you have that order of protection, you can enforce it more easily than you could if simply the abuser was stalking you and you didn't have it in place. You can call the police, and simply violating the order of protection is an additional crime that the abuser's committing, and the police will respond. The abuser also goes into a whole database that the police have that can be useful when they're stopped for other reasons when they are engaging with law enforcement. We also advise clients in other cases, divorce cases, custody, landlord-tenant cases, immigration. A lot of people don't know in the landlord-tenant context that a landlord has a duty to accommodate a victim. If an incident of domestic violence has occurred, there's a duty to let them go from their lease and allow them to find a new place to live so they can find a safe place to live.
Our partners, including Nagara, has been so incredible as it relates to immigration law, as it relates to divorce, all of the different things where participants can consider next steps. Those partners with attorneys who are doing pro bono work, it's a lifeline for so many different survivors and victims of violence. Having free legal support, it means everything. It means the difference between somebody knowing nothing and staying in violence to somebody being able to have the opportunity to choose.